Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Atishtatat satam margam kopam yachata deepitam pitra pita mahane napi jushtam va prapita mahai Atishtatat satam margam kopam yachata deepitam pitra pita mahenapi jushtamba prapitat mahai Atishtata satamargam Atishtata satamargam Gopam yachati didipatam Ladies? Atishtata satam margam Kopam yachati deepitam pitra pitamahenapi jushtamba pratitamahai Atishtata satam margam Kopam yachata deepitam Atishtata. Just follow. Satam margam. The path of great saintly personalities. Kopam. The anger. Yachata. Subdue. Deepitam. Which is now awakened. Pitra. By the father. Pita mahena api. And by the grandfather. Jushtam. Executed. Va. Your. Prapita mahai. By the great grandfathers. So before I read the translation, I'm going to read 10, which has no purport, and then this one. 10, text 10. Oh, pure-hearted ones, your father, Prachini Bhatti, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead have ordered you to generate population. Therefore, how can you burn to ashes these trees and herbs which are needed for the maintenance of your subjects and descendants? Text 11 translation. The path of goodness traversed by your father, grandfather, and great-grandfathers is that of maintaining the subjects, prajas, including the men, animals, and trees. That is the path you should follow. Unnecessary anger is contrary to your duty. Therefore, I request you to control your anger. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Here, the words Pitra, Pita Mahenapi Drushtamba Patitat Mahai depict an honest royal family consisting of the kings, their father, their grandfather, and their great-grandfathers. Such a royal family has a prestigious position because it maintains the citizens, or prajas. The word praja refers to one who has taken birth within the jurisdiction of the government. The exalted royal families were conscious that all living beings, whether human, animal, or lower than animal, should be given protection. The modern democratic system cannot be exalted in this way because the leaders elected strive only for power and have no sense of responsibility. In a monarchy, a king with a prestigious position follows the great deeds of his forefathers. Thus, Soma, the king of the moon, here reminds the Prajetas about the glories of their father, grandfather, and great-grandfathers. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. This is a very nice section of Srimad Bhagavatam that's repeating a message that's heard elsewhere in a variety of ways, the duties of a king. And the duties of a king include giving protection and maintaining the subjects. Now, a pious king knows that they maintain their subjects in part through their piety, that is, the piety of the king is shared by the citizens, and conversely, the impiety of a ruler is shared by the citizens. And so great kings would undergo various activities that would bring piety or merit or kriti, and to them, which then they understood was to give merit to the citizens. Many examples of this in the Bhagavatam alone. One outstanding example is Maharaj Ambarish, who was undergoing some severe observance of Ekadasis throughout the whole year, simply for the benefit and prosperity and well-being of his citizens. And because he was a pure devotee, and he already had enormous merit, and he had enormous wealth that rivaled that of the spiritual world, because he was a Vaikuntha Vasi consciousness person, surpassed the opulence of heaven. But his interest wasn't bringing merit to himself so he could prosper further. It was for the welfare of his citizens. Anyway, great kings understand that's what they do, in part because it maintains the well-being of the citizens. And the emphasis being placed here is the citizens includes the entire population that takes birth within a kingdom. Not only human beings are to be maintained, but praja indicates all the species of life that are to be maintained. So the previous verse was describing, text 9, was describing how trees and herbs and vegetation provide nourishment for other species of life. And your duty is to maintain, so how can you take away that which is the sustenance for the various species of life? Another important principle that's spoken of in the verse, Prabhupada emphasizes in the purport, and that is something that's missing in modern times, that is the culture of following forefathers. Krishna speaks like this to Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita. For cultured people, it's very important that your predecessors, your previous grandfathers and father and prior ancestors, you uphold the standards that they uphold. There's a nice little section in this month of Damodar when Krishna asks his father about the Indra Yagya, the paraphernalia that was assembled for a sacrifice, and Krishna wanted to know, is this something that's enjoined in the Vedas, or is this something that's a family tradition? That is, that which is enjoined in the Vedas is imperative. Doesn't mean that that which is a family tradition is take it or leave it. But it doesn't have the same strength as that which is enjoined in the Vedas. But it's for cultured persons, it's following what the predecessors do, upholding the standards of the predecessors, is very important. It's one of the principal arguments that Vishvamitra gives to Dasarath about upholding the word of his promise that whatever you want, I will do. And in the line of Ikshwaku, all the great kings, they have upheld whatever word they give. Never depart from satyam. You utter something and you do that something, and that's what a great personality does. But in addition to the injunction of the principle that this is what kings do, there's your whole line of ancestry. And never, ever has there been a time when any in the Ikshwaku line gave their word and went against their word. Not possible. It's not possible. Dasarath, don't cross that line. Oh, it keeps cultured people sitting straight, being, proper, never going to the left, never going to the right, staying right in the middle, being bound by that culture that you don't depart from the standards of your ancestors. Now I want to go to another important point, because it's weaving throughout this section. The path of, Prabhupada translates, the path of goodness traversed by your father, grandfather, and great-grandfathers is that of maintaining the subjects. Now, that's the path of goodness. Not too much on this, but Kshatriyas are, Brahmins are the mode of goodness. And Kshatriyas are Kshatriyas. They're not dominated like the Brahmanas. They're engaged in activities of control and protection, which is the duty of the Kshatriyas, and a degree of passion is required. Yet Prabhupada is choosing to translate this as the path of goodness. Now, that's the translation of the the Sanskrit phrase satam margam, the path of great saintly personalities. So great saintly personalities include kings that are powerful, chivalrous, punish. A very, very similar, I mentioned at the beginning. In this section is messages that are repeated elsewhere in the Bhagavatam in a very similar, different, but similar dynamic is Dhruva Maharaj, when some yaksha, singular, some, not all the yakshas, but one yaksha killed his brother. The Bhagavatam describes it in the Himalayas. And this came to the attention of Dhruva, and Dhruva became angry. In Prabhupada's purport, very short, but it says it's a misunderstanding that great personalities are never to become angry. Dhruva's becoming angry was appropriate. Prabhupada, it says, it goes on further and explains this is impersonalism, and we're not impersonalists. There's a really nice description of this given by Narottam Das Thakur, where he says these things, these gates to hell, according to Bhagavad Gita, anger is one of them, has its place for the devotee. And he details each of them. So just, rather than go to all of them, just stay with the anger. His phrase is krodha. So in this verse it's kopam, that's anger. And another word commonly used is krodha. So Narottam Das Thakur's phrase is krodha bhakta dveshi jane. Bhakta dveshi jane means people who are envious of bhaktas, and they say and do things that indicate their envy of bhaktas. And according to Narottam Das Thakur, that's an appropriate time and circumstance for a Vaishnava to exhibit anger. Now, not uncontrolled anger, but engaging that force, that power of anger. Tell a little Prabhupada story. I'm sure the other Prabhupada disciples here will have their own direct experiences of Srila Prabhupada exhibiting anger, but I had one that has made a lasting impression. Just quickly share. In New York, at some point in time, before there was the BBT, it was ISKCON Press. And ISKCON Press had shifted from Boston, where it started, to New York, and over there on Tiffany Place was the ISKCON Press headquarters, where the artists did their work, and all the production for Prabhupada's books would take place. And each year when Prabhupada came, it was part of the experience of the people that work with the press, that they would have their time with Prabhupada, the editors this and the transcribers that, and then the artists. So there was this afternoon where the artists that have been working on artwork for Prabhupada's books would bring their art into Prabhupada's quarters, and one by one, in a very sweet and loving and very joy-filled way, Prabhupada was interacting with each of the artists, looking at the painting, interacting with the artist, saying something, some comment, improve it this way, oh, this is very nice, or making some funny remark, and everyone in the room would laugh. And it was just, I was involved because I was a temple commander that particular year, so I had to help carry the paintings into the room and sat in the room and watched Prabhupada just lifting those devotees that were dedicating their lives to him and his service, just floating in joyful exchange. Right in the middle, I was seated somewhere like where you are, the Mridanga player, that close, and I saw Prabhupada reach over to his desk, and there was a little buzzer underneath the desk, little button, and he pressed the button right in the midst of this joy-filled atmosphere. And when Prabhupada was joyful, the whole room was joyful. It was contagious, with waves. The room was filled with loving exchange mood. In the middle, he pressed the button, pressed the buzzer. And that was a signal, because over there, another room was where his personal servant was. And there was a signal for the personal servant to come. Right in the middle of this whole situation, the personal servant came because he heard the buzzer, and while he was still paying obeisances, Prabhupada's voice completely changed. There was anger in his voice, and I don't remember what he said because I just froze. He was angry. And I don't remember the words because I just blanked out. And then the devotee mumbled something and then paid obeisances and left. And then it was as if that didn't even happen. And Prabhupada immediately switched back to joyful, jolly, happy, floating in ecstasy, loving exchange. And I found out later that particular servant was having a very serious spiritual difficulty, and Prabhupada wanted to help that devotee, so he exhibited anger, because that's what the devotee needed. Even when that was going on, then I understood why he did what he did, but it was like Prabhupada had a sword, and he took the sword out of the sheath and held it in the air and showed it to this devotee and put it back in the sheath, and that was it. It was over. He was engaging anger for the service of his disciple, but he wasn't controlled by that anger at all. That was a powerful lesson. Following the words of Narottam Das Thakur, a devotee may engage in anger, as he says specifically about Dhruva. Dhruva's anger towards the yaksha that had killed him, his brother, his stepbrother, was suitable. He is the king, and his brother had been killed, and anger was proper. Say it again. It's a misunderstanding to say that an exalted devotee should never become angry. Dhruva became angry. Here in this case, the Prajetas, kopam jachata dipitam. Anger had arisen. And in this case, anger was excessive. The word used in the Dhruva Maharaj case is ati roshena. Ati roshena means with excessive anger, or beyond the call of the circumstance, anger. So, in Dhruva's case, Swayambhuva Manu, his father's father, came and told him, this is Dhruva, this is excessive anger. And there's a very long description. Here it's quite short, all of what Soma has to say to the Prachetas. But the persons that are being spoken to, Dhruva, pure devotee, the Prachetas, they saw the personality of Godhead. They pleased the personality of Godhead. He came and told them, you please me very much. Therefore I've come before you. That's how elevated the Prajetas were. And when they came out of the water, just a couple of verses previously, they saw the earth was overgrown with trees and other vegetation. And their concern was there has to be some agricultural land for the population. And so they did some land clearing. But it was excessive. It was arising from anger. It was purposeful anger, but it was excessive. Exactly the word that's used in the purport here, or excuse me, in the translation here. Unnecessary anger. So there's necessary and unnecessary, is the point I want to make. And in the case of Dhruva, his anger was he was annihilating all the yakshas. And there's other examples where it was excessive. Janamejaya, who wanted to annihilate all snakes. So he had a big snake yagya, and all the snakes were pouring into the fire, and he had to be stopped. This is excessive. It wasn't all snakes. And that's not the Lord's plan, that there's snakes. Now, Srila Prabhupada told a little story about Bhaktisiddhanta and Bhaktisiddhanta ordering at his headquarters for a cobra to be killed. There was this scene, a cobra, and the devotees were around the cobra. Many of you have heard this story, I'm sure. And Bhaktisiddhanta saw the commotion and he ordered them, kill it. Prabhupada was present when he heard the order, kill it. And it struck his heart. He's a sadhu, how can you say kill? How can you use violence for another living entity, because the teaching says not only that living entity is a spirit soul and they have a right to live, super soul is within, and elevated sadhus are to see super soul within the heart of every living entity, and why would you say kill it? And then Prabhupada explained, then when he read in Srimad Bhagavatam, where Prahlad Maharaj says that great exalted souls are very pleased when such envious entities as poisonous snakes are killed. They're happy. And so violence, anger, and so forth, they have their place in the life of a devotee. All of this is discussed at great length by Prabhupada in his purport of 791. This is where Prahlad is being pushed forward before Lord Nrsingadev because the Lord was excessively angry. Manyu samrambham. Greatly angry, not excessively angry, but angry to the degree that all the demigods couldn't pacify him, and even the goddess of fortune couldn't. She was afraid because his anger was over the top. Now, the commentary says, within the personality of Godhead, there has to be everything. We'll say it conversely. You won't find something that exists that does not exist in its pure form in the Supreme. So what's pure anger? We don't know, because we're not pure. We're moved by you-know-what, modes of nature and karma and false ego and all kinds of forces, conditioning forces. But if the personality of Godhead has anger, then a pure devotee, Dhruva, and the Prajetas may have anger, and it's appropriate. They may use violence, and it's appropriate. Prabhupada said Krishna's whole discussion with Arjuna was to incite him to the position of anger, so he would fight. Dharma yuddha, but yuddha. Because Krishna wanted it. There's a very nice section in Bhishma Dev's Bhishma Dev's instructions to Yudhisthira, beginning of Canto 1, Chapter 9. I'm just going to say a couple more things and end to see if there's some discussion. This is a nice topic. So, before the battle, Yudhisthira had great hesitation. And he gave his reasons. Like Arjuna, before the battle in Bhagavad Gita, he gave his reasons. Krishna gave his reasons. Arjuna fought. Before the battle, Yudhisthira had his concern. Krishna wanted the battle, and so the battle took place under the order of Krishna. Even after that, the battle is over, Yudhisthira felt terrible. So many thousands and thousands and thousands of people lost their lives for what? So I can rule? His argument before is, Duryodhana's a good manager. Things are going on. Just let it go on. Krishna was, no. The ruler should not just be a good manager. The ruler has to be dharmic. And this person is the opposite. He needs to be removed. I want him removed. And you please be my instrument. Nimitta matram. So, after the battle, Yudhisthira felt terrible. And so terrible that even Krishna came to try to pacify Yudhisthira, and Krishna couldn't pacify Yudhisthira. He still felt terrible. That was because Krishna wanted to glorify Grandfather Bhishma, so Grandfather Bhishma could pacify, showing my devotee is greater than me. Krishna likes to do that. So the Pandavas came by the side of Grandfather Bhishma on the bed of arrows, and something very important, instruction was given, where Yudhisthira is told by Grandfather Bhishma, who can understand the plan of the Lord? Don't even try. Great sages, rishis, elevated souls, since time immemorial, they haven't, don't even try. But here's what you should do, rather than try to understand the plan, which you may not understand. 3 things. Whatever actions you have taken, if you're concerned, did I do the right thing? 3 things. Very instructive. Follow activities that are dharmic. Second, apply that dharmic principle under the guidance of qualified brahmanas and Vaishnavas. And 3, when you do those things, do so with the purpose that Krishna should be pleased. And if you can check the box and say yes, yes, and yes, you have no reason to lament, because, this is my language now, our department is service department, and results is Krishna's department. So what comes from our service, that's Krishna's. And our department is service. So how are we orienting ourselves in the service department? I'll say the 3 again. Abide by the codes of Dharma, or theistic conduct. Take guidance from qualified Brahmanas and Vaishnavas how to apply those codes of conduct in your life. And the 3rd is, when you do so, examine your motive. You're doing this for the pleasure of Krishna, not a mix. And if you can say yes to all of those, then there's no cause for lamentation. And say conversely, if there's some room for improvement in any one of those 3 or all of those 3, Make that improvement. Learn how to make improvement in those three areas. That's our life as devotees. Yudhishthira was pacified. And he said, in your case, you only did this battle because Krishna wanted you to do it. You took his guidance. He told you it's service, and that's the standard for dharma. Krishna says that's the standard. Bhagavat Pranitam. The personality of Godhead establishes dharma. You didn't do this for your own interest. You weren't prepared to do it at all, except Krishna said to do it. So don't lament. Krishna had some intention which you may not understand. You just be his instrument. So now, what about this utilization of anger? And then I'm done. Okay, it's authorized. I can get angry. For Krishna, of course. I can get angry for Krishna. But we're in this mixed position, so anything, when we become angry, almost invariably, we're controlled by it. Not we engage it in service to Krishna. It's very delicate. What to do? Because we want to become purified, and we want to please Krishna. So, what do? We go back to this statement here. The path of goodness traversed by your father, grandfather, and great-grandfathers, Satam Margam, the emphasis is maintenance of the praja, the well-being of the citizens. That's the primary duty of the king. And okay, we'll hear it in a bit. You cleared some land. There'll be some opportunity for agriculture. That's enough. Stop. And just at that word, they stopped. They stopped. Just as Dhruva did. He stopped. Swayambhuva Manu said, stop. Withdraw your anger. Control your anger. Curb your anger. Because it's come to the point where it's excessive or more than necessary. Unnecessary anger is contrary to your duty. Some anger is necessary for a king's duty or the sons of the king. Giving protection sometimes requires that force or power or exhibition of strength, but only in one case, when it's dharmic. Nice passage from Ramayana where Sita cautions Ram, you've taken this terrible vow that you'll kill all the Rakshasas, but the Rakshasas haven't done anything to you, but you've taken a vow that you'll kill them. And here we are in the forest, you got your sword, you got your arrows, and I'm concerned as your faithful, loving wife, that even a good person can be corrupted. And it's a nice section, I'll just quickly say. 3 things can corrupt a good person. Falsity, coveting another man's wife, and power. So she says, and it's a longer description, but I know you. You have no coveting of another man's wife. And I know you, that you'll always keep your word. But this sword and these bow and arrows, and then she tells the story of one sage that lived in the forest and undergoing austerities, and Indra got a little nervous. Uh-oh, maybe he wants to take over my kingdom. And so Indra, in disguise as a king, traveling through the forest, came to the sage's hermitage and said, my dear sir, I'm traveling in the forest with this sword, but I really don't need the sword. Can I just leave it to you, leave it with you for safekeeping? I'll come back later and get it. Sure, leave it here. And so, to uphold his promise to the king, he kept the sword by his side when he went to take his bath, when he went to gather roots and herbs and here and there. And just by having the sword in his hand, he became attached to the power of the sword, and then he misused the power of the sword in a wrong way, and he lost all of his Brahminical strength. So similarly, my dear husband, Ramachandra, I'm concerned. And because your elevated nature is impeccable, but even a good person can be corrupted by these three things. He smiled, and only a loving wife could speak what you've spoken. And then explained, I've taken a vow, I can't go against my vow, but the vow that I've taken is appropriate for the sons of Dasrath. We're to give protection, and the sages have been devoured by the Rakshasas. So it's my duty, it's not beyond my duty, but I give you my promise. I will not use this sword and my weapons for any other purpose than a dharmic purpose. So it was checkmate. He keeps his word. That one she didn't question. But we should be cautious when anger is now something that it's okay for a sadhu, only when it's in a proper circumstance, time, place, circumstance, and not otherwise, not for one's own interest, but for the Supreme Lord's interest, and then it's over, like Prabhupada showing the saber and putting it back in the sheath. Only in service to Krishna. That's our position. We're servants of Krishna. Only in service to Krishna. So the Prachetas have gone over the top with anger. Please curb your anger. Follow the path of your forefathers. Hare Krishna. Any discussion? Yes. I see there's some over here. Yes, go ahead, speak. Oh, there's one right over here, one Maharaj, who's got the microphone. You have to wait.
Thank you for the nice class. In regard to Bhishmadev's instructions, we've also received the same instruction from Srila Jiva Goswami. Anyabhilasita shunyam jnanam karma niravritam anukulyena krishnanu shilanam bhakti uttamam. That Srila Jiva Goswami says that our dharma is to serve Krishna.
Right.
And to serve Krishna, there's anushilanam. We have to follow the predecessor acharyas, the predecessor authorities, of which are acharyas such as Srila Prabhupada, is our source to understand what Krishna wants us to do. And then it should be done anukulyena, it should be done to please Krishna. And then finally, which I think covers the three instructions for Bhishmadev, it should be dharmic for Krishna. It should be according to the predecessor acharyas, and it should be done to please Krishna. And then finally we should improve so that Uttama Bhakti, it should be only to please Krishna and only without any other deviation by any other process. So that's the improvement of our original three.
Just see, Rupa Goswami was right. Not, oh, that shows the Bhagavatam was right, but Rupa Goswami is drawing from the Bhagavatam. Here's something that you'll appreciate. Could you take the microphone over here to this nice devotee? Jiva Goswami comments that in that principal verse of the entire Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, there's 4 parts. One is the Swarup, and the other 3 are Tatastha. And the Swarup is Anukulyena, Because the other three are servants of the primary. Rejecting speculation, rejecting sense gratification, following the previous authorities for the satisfaction of Krishna. That's the Swarup Lakshana. So of those three, from Bhishma Dev's instruction, the consciousness behind what we do is everything. We have to do the right thing, but we have to do the right thing in proper consciousness. That's Krishna consciousness. Go ahead.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. As you explained today, in case of pure devotees, the anger is within their control and they can use the anger for the service of Krishna. But when I see, after hearing after so many times, but when I see in my condition, I get carried away with the anger. So anger is usually not under my control, but I get controlled by the anger. But I want to come on that platform where it should be other way around. And second part of the question is being, as you said...
I heard a statement, not a question. The statement is, I'd like to control that uncontrolled anger. What's the question?
Yeah.
What's your question?
And my question is how to come on that platform.
Oh,
yeah.
Mode of goodness. Because anger comes from passion, right? Kamesha, Krodesha, Rajoguna, mode of passion, some udbhava. So, transition to the mode of goodness. Chant better japa.
The second part of question is as you said, Prajapatis, we are also in a given condition of our family as a householder. We have we can use anger for controlling our children.
Well, be careful. Be careful. Be careful. You want to hear another Prabhupada story? Sure, Prabhupada story. Because of time, I'll make it short. Prabhupada was visiting the Dallas Gurukul. There's transcriptions of the dialogue. Or the teachers, not parents, but teachers were saying, Prabhupada, can we use discipline? He wasn't saying anger, just discipline. And is saying, no. Show them love. But Prabhupada, sometimes the children are so disruptive that there's education in the classroom is impossible. Can we discipline them? Show them love. And they're over and over and say, okay, we'll show them love. And then once they went there, then Prabhupada said, and when that situation of love is there, then you can use discipline. And then he qualified it. He said, you show a stick, but you don't use it. That's metaphorical. And so as a parent, you may have to put your foot down. But when you put your foot down, there should be 10 times where the child understands where this relationship is a relationship of love and care and affection. So when the authority figure puts their foot down and exercises some discipline, it's coming from a place of love. Otherwise, you got a problem. In addition to the discipline problem, you have another problem. You've lost the trust of this dependent. And you keep doing that, and it's not a good formula. So, follow Prabhupada's formula. You have a question? Here's the microphone. We're going to end with this question.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I want to ask something about Dhruv Maharaj. Dhruv Maharaj knew very well that his brother Uttam will be killed in the future. Because Lord Narayan, he told him in the 9th chapter of 4th canto that in the future your brother will be killed by yakshas when he will go for hunting. So he knew his brother will be killed.
That doesn't mean it's okay.
So in in 11th chapter, 4th canto, 11th chapter, Swambhu Manu also give him some kind of indirect sweet chastisement that instead of killing one yaksha, you have killed 100,000
Exactly.
yaksha. So how his anger is justified? He knew that his brother will be killed by Dev Yoga. Means, so I'm having some doubt regarding that.
A king, we're not speaking you and me, we're speaking a king, has to exercise the laws of Manu. And someone engages in killing, then there's an appropriate behavior on the part of the king. And to do that appropriate behavior, it requires, according to what Prabhupada writes, read it carefully, because you are a careful reader. The anger exhibited by Dhruva was appropriate. Now, to punish requires some anger. He became excessive. Not everybody, not all the yakshas, one yaksha. Punish the one yaksha, please. Not all yakshas. So the initial anger or punishment mode, using the authority and power of the king to correct the citizens in a commensurate manner to the deed done, that was one of the glorifications of Dasarath. People in his kingdom were dealt with in an appropriate manner. If people deviated from proper conduct, appropriate to the deviation, they were dealt with. So, although the Lord said it's going to happen, when it happens doesn't mean, oh, it's going to happen, so it's okay. It's destined. Haribol.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. If I'm not wrong, Prabhupada also write in one of purport somewhere that even pure devotee or great devotee like Dhruv Maharaj came under the influence of anger.
Yes,
in this case.
inappropriate, because it became excessive. Exactly the language that's here in this. Unnecessary anger, a degree of anger that was beyond what's necessary. And we'll end there. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.